I grew up in Johnson City, Tennessee, in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. If you're not familiar with them, the Appalachians are not particularly known as a center of intellectual society. My father, now deceased, was born in 1921, or so he thought, as he wasn't sure. When he needed some sort of documentation late in life in order to retire, he had to make his best guess. He never knew his father. His mother and father were never married, much more of an issue in the 1920s than now, I imagine. When he was in his early teens, his mother, Catherine Bunton, died, leaving him and his sister to be passed from relative to relative. He dropped out of school after 6th grade to hunt corn for 5 cents an hour so that he could eat. Notice the time frame. He was orphaned during the Great Depression. Hence, my father had a very different view of life than you or I likely do. He did, however, believe in education, but not education for education's sake, but to get a job, so you can make enough money to live so that you did not have to live like him. He taught me, all you're going to get out of life is a living. Remember that line. All you're going to get out of life is a living. I was a first-generation college student, as some of you know. I didn't know much about college, but I read a lot when I could. My mother would take me to the library, where I read about science fiction stories and Hardy Boys detective books. I went to a local college. I had to work to get through. During summers, I worked as a laborer, and eventually I drove a dump truck, which gave me a raise to $3.35 an hour. During the school year, I cleaned the library, mowed lawns, tutored, and other jobs. Afterwards, I went to graduate school. I didn't really go out of any compelling reason other than I did not know what else to do. My father did teach me other things, how to use a chainsaw, split wood, operate a Caterpillar front-end loader. I have actually driven a front-end loader into the side of a house on purpose. It's okay. Drive a farm tractor. Notice he taught me what he knew, how to work, not how to play. As far as I know, he never threw a ball at me or played a game or read me a book. But then he never had those things either. He did just naturally love quick-witted sayings like, "Nancy, my mother, we better go to bed. These people may want to go home." He did say that with a couple there. Or similarly, "Here's your hat, here's your coat, what's your hurry?" Or "It takes 2 cats to make a kitten, but only 1 kitten to make a cat." Even knowing that, I don't know what good it does me. Squirrels are just bushy-tailed rats. You're the boss and I'm nothing. That makes you the boss over nothing. Pizza is just Italian leftovers. If you need me, I'll call you. If asked how things were going, almost invariably his response was, "One day it's chicken, the next day it's feathers." Or in frustration, real or mock, you tear up an anvil with a rubber hammer. I don't know how many times I heard that one. When I would be leaving home to drive back to graduate school, almost invariably he would say as I was going, "Son, be careful. There are a lot of other idiots on the road too." My father was not a very outwardly affectionate man. I generally wasn't hugged as a child that I recall, and I still find hugs awkward. I did, however, receive a number of switchings when I misbehaved. For example, my dad found it entirely inappropriate when he discovered me throwing rocks at a sizable hornet's nest. Fortunately, my aim was bad, but his was not. Okay, remember what my father said. All you're going to get out of life is a living. I think I agree with that now, but not in the sense he meant. He meant a job, a roof over you, food to eat, and I am grateful that he worked hard to provide those things for his family. Many people today don't have these, and they should not be taken for granted. But let me challenge you and me to redefine a living. What makes you and me feel alive? I felt alive when I rode in the back of a pickup truck in the mountains of Honduras to learn about rural water purification. I felt alive in Haiti at the end of a hot, dry, and dusty day, sipping a cold drink and enjoying such cool as one could get in Port-au-Prince after dark. I feel alive when a student like you gets excited about making a difference in the world. But the exciting news is that those of us in this room have been given the resources and the incredible responsibility to determine what a living is. So if all we're going to get out of life is a living, let's be sure that a living is a marvelous engagement with where the world's need meets our passions and abilities. But are we up to the task? My father also taught me, no matter what you do in life, there's also someone who can do it better. I suspect this was meant to keep me in my place, to keep me humble. I suppose it did, but what it really did was beat me down. It was discouraging. Why even try if someone else did it better? Again, no matter what you do in life, there's always someone who can do it better. That's what I would hear. I suspect that often enough that's true. However, John Maxwell writes in his book, Talent is Never Enough, many people sit back and wait for someone else to step up and take responsibility. Sometimes that's because of weak character, laziness, lack of resolve, and so on, but more often it comes from poor judgment or low self-esteem. People believe that someone else is more qualified or better situated to stand up and make a difference. But the truth is that most of the people who make a difference do so not because they are best for the job, but because they decided to try. So sure, maybe somebody could do it better. Install solar power in a developing nation, develop a new vaccine, write a life-changing play or novel, help a small business start in sub-Saharan Africa, provide health care to the forgotten, be an attorney for the oppressed, care for the patient that no one else wants to touch, meet a family's emotional need, produce a composition, poem, play, or work of art that enriches the world. Maybe somebody could do it better than you or me. But will they? I just don't think we can afford to wait and see. The needs of the world are too great, and our lives are too short. Remember what John Maxwell wrote. Most of the people who make a difference do so not because they were best for the job, but because they decided to try. You've made a great start. The fact that you are in this room shows you have courage, stamina, discipline, and curiosity. You're creative, innovative, and just plain smart. You may be the smartest, or not. You may be the most creative, or not. You may be the most articulate, most persuasive, most innovative, or not. But it does not matter. You have to try to make a difference. So if my father was right, and all you're going to get out of life is a living, make very sure a living is as rich and full and world-changing as it can possibly be.